Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every week from TheRinger.com is Dave Jacoby. Jacoby!
It's NBA Cup season, Verno. NBA Cup season is here.
Oh, you're ready?
City's on fire. Everyone's taking tomorrow off of work. It's crazy.
Since we last spoke, Nikola Jokic had played in 2 games, Jacoby. He had 104 points, 30 rebounds, and 16 assists.
And back-to-back.
One of those was a loss to the Wizards. One of them was a 30-point win in Atlanta. By the way, that is coming off of his Thursday night performance against Cleveland, where he had 27 points, 20 rebounds, and 11 assists. His averages are now up to 32, 14, and 10.
Oh, my God.
And I went and looked at it. Years ago, my friend John Hollinger, before analytics became all the rage, and now we have come to the point where people poke holes in player efficiency rating, and they say there are much better things in order to judge a player by than PER. But John put together this formula for PER, and I've always thought it is a reasonable gauge. Sure, it has its faults, but also when you would look up and down the list, generally what you would find is it was a good indicator of who had the best seasons, and even throughout history, who had the best seasons. Like for a long, long time, the number one season of all time was 1961, 1962, Wilt Chamberlain. Right? And now you have looked at, and I went to go take a quick look. Number 5 for the best season ever on that list is Giannis Antetokounmpo in 1920. Number 4 is Giannis in 2021.
Giannis played in 1920?
No. 2019, 2020.
Okay.
Giannis in 21-22 is number 4. Wilt, 61-62 is number 3. Jokic in 21-22 is number 2. And the number 1 season of all time in PER so far is Nikola Jokic 24-25. He is having the greatest season ever that has ever been played, at least through the first quarter of the season. It is absolutely bonkers. And as someone who watched Washington the next night play against Memphis, it is unfathomable to me how they ever got a win against anyone ever.
It was a wire-to-wire win. It was a wire-to-wire win. Like it was like they got to get down to like 8 points in the fourth quarter, and that was it. Jokic had 56.
I have no idea. It would honestly, I must tell you, not really locked into Wizards basketball, but as I watch, Memphis didn't even play Ja Morant or Desmond Bane, and if they wanted to win by 100, they could have won by 100. It was crazy to watch, and I'm like, how did this? Who? How? I almost feel like I need to go back and watch Denver versus Washington just to see how that happened. There needs to be a 30 for 30 about it. What if I told you that a guy would have 56 points against the worst team ever, but lose? I'd watch it.
So it's really a function of Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray not being available. Because, the Nuggets, we've discussed this, and it's a known thing. They're not exactly the deepest team in the NBA. And with those two out, there just aren't too many bucket getters there. But one of the things watching Jokic's performance in this game and against the Hawks that stood out to me, which you're going to love, Verno, there's like some real chemistry between Westbrook and Jokic in these pick and rolls. Like Westbrook understands the assignment. He's like, I've got a nuclear weapon here. Like, I'm just going to do what I can to get him the ball in positions to shoot. And he had 12 assists against the Wizards. And I'm going to guess that 9 of those were to Jokic. I'm going to guess 10 of those were to Jokic. And he had 11 assists against the Hawks. And I think that without Murray in the lineup, Westbrook was basically like, let me help this man because he is the sole driving fuel in this engine. Let me help him get his buckets. But Jokic taking 39 shots in a game, which is what he took to get to the 56, I just never thought I'd see it. I mean, it's obviously a career high, but it's just like not what he's put on this planet to do on a basketball court.
Their record is good with Westbrook in the starting lineup. I'll just leave that at that.
I know you love Westbrook. Like there's real chemistry between those two. There's real chemistry.
I've always had a thing for guys that I believe raise the collective of play. So many times people look at this individual and they say, here's what he's doing individually without acknowledging the impact that he has on the rest of his team. And what I have found to be true is that Westbrook is one of those guys that is playing so hard and cares every single night, whether or not he wins, that it has an impact on the others, that it is very hard to see guys dogging it when they are playing alongside him. He has incredible faults. There's no doubt about it. But I've also felt like he's never gotten credit for the impact that it has on other guys around him, that he cares. He cares.
Yeah.
He cares what happens that night.
And it's hard for that not to be contagious. And I feel like Jamal Murray is, he's coming back from an injury and, not playing up to the sort of championship level that he was a couple of years ago. But I feel like Jamal Murray tries to help Jokic by taking on some of the scoring burden. And I think Westbrook tries to help Jokic by making his scoring easier, by feeding it to him in good spots. And I think that they could each borrow a little bit from each other. But we don't need more Westbrook shots. But I did like in these two games just the way that Westbrook was like, I've got the best player in the league on my team. Let me help him be the best player in the league.
Couple other news items that we need to get to. There's a story that came out about the NBA and FIBA in talks about maybe putting together a basketball league. I guess some things have fallen apart on the FIBA side. And so now Adam Silver is involved in this, and they're saying it's very serious talk. So there would be basically an NBA endorsed. Now, the one thing is, it's interesting. FIBA does the player development thing better, and it's actually one thing that Adam Silver kind of acknowledged. That the benefit of this is, on one end, it's money and exposure for EuroLeague basketball, right? Getting the NBA involved and getting their brand bigger and promoting their brand and all of the things that the NBA can bring to the table. On the other side, it seems to me that not only with the globalization of the game, but also a pilfering of, how do y'all do this? Is something that is interesting to Adam Silver, because they've already tried it with the Nike and the USA Basketball, whatever else, but it's like, you guys are unbelievable at identifying potential professional basketball players, teaching professional basketball players, and then accentuating their talents. And that's why so many of them are so much more skilled and so much better at playing team basketball. And I've read a lot about this in the past. And one of the things that's always fascinating to me to hear coaches talk about is to say, we've got it all backwards. Like they practice 5-8 times and then they have a game. We play 5 or 8 games and then might have a practice.
Ask any retired NBA player how they feel about the AAU development system. And then you can just lay out for the next 5 minutes, listen to them rant about it, because AAU is now being branded as like the problem with developing American basketball players. And one of the things that they do out there in the EuroLeague, they have sort of an academy style thing. Like, you can be like on Fibonacci when you're like 7 years old. You know what I mean? Like you'll have like a Madrid jersey and be 10. Like, one of my buddy's kid is good at soccer, and this summer he's like, oh, he's going to go train with Arsenal in New Jersey. And I was like, what? Arsenal, New Jersey? He's 6 years old, Verno. He's 6. And I think that one of the things the NBA is studying is this sort of, academy style development system, because I don't know enough about developing professional athletes. You know what I mean? But people hate the way it's done with AAU, and there's so much focus on individual scoring. And as you mentioned, games, not even winning games, just playing well in games and being recruited and getting into the system and getting noticed and getting scouted. And there's not a lot of focus on actual fundamental player development. And I think that they're going to make an adjustment here in the States. But in terms of these like negotiations, I don't know exactly how the EuroLeague works, but it's like a conglomerate of 18 teams. And I think like there's a bunch of them that are fixed, 13 permanent teams in it, and then 5 wildcard teams that play in. But I also didn't know they're kind of like in a contract year, the EuroLeague is. So I think that
two of the teams that are coming out of it, they're letting it expire.
So Silver sort of sees an opportunity, sort of like using chaos as a ladder. I think that getting that NBA logo around the world would be very savvy for the NBA. And something tells me that we'll see something like that.
It'll be interesting to see the way it plays out. Couple other things that we do need to mention is over the weekend, you were texting me while the Grizzlies were playing against the Boston Celtics. I have many times, I'm not going to go into this very much, but I mean, it was weeks ago while they were, I think, 11th or 12th in the standings. You laughed me off the show for saying they'd be the number 1 seed. I think they've won 9 of 10. I think they're in second place now, already in the Western Conference, and a win over the Boston Celtics with one of the most unbelievable Ja Morant dunks. After we reported on the show Friday, he had said he's not going to dunk anymore. He instead chose to do the most awesome dunk. So he went from I'm not going to dunk to I'm going to do the most awesome dunk.
That's like when you wake up after a big Friday night on Saturday, you're like, I'm not drinking tonight. Yeah. You know, like in the morning, you're like, I'm not drinking tonight.
You know,
and then 6 o'clock rolls around, you're watching college football. You're like, I'll have a couple.
Why
that's
not?
What it felt like. Yeah, that's what it felt like. I'm not going to dunk. I'm not going to dunk. It's not good for me. But when he sees the opportunity, he sees the opportunity. And I did laugh at you when you said they'd be the number 1 seed. And I did look at their recent success and say, not exactly the stiffest competition. You know, they'd be like the Kings at home. And then this Celtics game was really like, all right, let's see what you have. And Verno, what did we see and what did they have?
I mean, Ja Morant almost had a triple-double in the first half.
Against one of the best defensive teams.
Jaren Jackson couldn't be stopped 9 possessions in a row. I mean, I don't know. You tell me. I tried to get you on the train. I tried to. So don't ever say I didn't try.
No. We'll see. It was a big win. I think that was a really, really, really good win for a team that needed one. You know, because I think there were some people looking at their sort of recent success, and you know, you go through the wins, and you've seen every single one. You know what I mean? You've seen every single one. It's not exactly like, you know, not a lot of like teams that were in the playoffs last year.
I'm gonna tell you this: there's 10 of them in a row, 9 of which they won, and the one they didn't win, the other team got 26 free throws in the fourth quarter. So,
okay,
could be 10.
Just data.
Just data. 10. I'm just telling you.
Just data. It's just data. It's just facts. It's not your opinion. It's just facts.
Just reporting the facts. Let's get to 5 questions. We got the NBA Cup beginning tonight, Jacoby. Question number 1. What would be the best outcome for the NBA in terms of the way this plays out? We have Thunder Mavs, Bucks Magic tonight. We have Knicks Hawks, Rockets Warriors tomorrow night. The best case scenario for the teams that then end up meeting up in Las Vegas is what?
Well, in the East, the Magic, unfortunately, you know, with the injury to Franz, the oblique twins out there, it's just a bummer. And you know, I don't think they're going to put up much. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say upsets are impossible. We've all seen it in sports for our entire lives, but it will likely be the Bucks that will advance there. And I think for the sake of the league, it could not have been better to have Trae Young against the Knicks in the Garden. But I think that having the orange and blue of a resurgence New York City backed Knicks team is who they want to come out of the East there. And I think in the West, it's clearly sort of, as you said, like for the league, for interest, for significance, for ratings, Steph Curry against the Knicks. Is Steph Curry in the last few years of his career going up against the Knicks under the lights of Las Vegas, playing for the cup, I think would be like the ideal scenario for this tournament for the league. Is that what I personally want to see? Not exactly. But I think that would be ideal for the league, which is a question you asked.
So you think the Knicks market stardom, as it were, is bigger than the Giannis stardom? Because it's fair to say the biggest star remaining in the Eastern Conference, if we're doing the star thing, is Giannis.
Yes.
And Giannis and Lillard were there last year. Obviously, they got beat by Indiana.
Yep. And I think that the way LeBron was the rising tide that floated all the boats and the interest, I think that Steph Curry can do the same. He's one of the biggest, probably the second biggest world-round star in the league, second to LeBron.
And so to have him involved in that. Also, having a California team wouldn't hurt in terms of maybe and a team that has both of those teams. I'm actually going to agree with you on this because I was there last year and I thought got super saved by the fact that the Lakers made it, because the Lakers are a worldwide brand and people could come straight from California to Las Vegas very, very easily.
Oh, yeah.
And go to the game.
You can drive.
And so that was one of the things that I thought. And so it's like because if it would have been, because you had other teams there, you had Indiana there, you had New Orleans there. And it was like, man, this is like, the arena was like the Lakers Invitational for sure. And you're going to have a ton of Lakers fans. But I will say, because it is in Las Vegas and because you're trying to make this a big deal on a big stage, how many Thunder fans, Mavs fans, Bucks fans, Rockets fans, Hawks fans, are you going to get there? Whereas if like the Knicks and the Warriors have big national brands that would both be able to pack out that arena, and I think you would have a good mix of both of those teams. I will just say they've made it very, very hard for you as a fan. Let's just say you're in one of these markets.
I wouldn't feel comfortable buying a ticket right now.
Right. Say I'm a big Thunder fan. I've got to plan a trip to Las Vegas after this all plays out, right? I gotta figure out what I'm doing my job, and you're just never going to get.
You don't know. There's the 14th and the 17th, and you don't know if your team is going to play in both of those games either.
Right.
And there is the danger of the 16th, the off day. I can't stay in Las Vegas for 3 days anymore. It's just not. It's not good for my health. I might not make it. I might not make it out. And those 2 off days for this fan base in Vegas, so not only do you have to plan a trip to Vegas last second, you have to have a contingency plan to stay in Vegas longer. It's just.
I used to have to do this. I used to go to the NCAA tournament every single year. I would follow the Memphis Tigers wherever they went. And I can't tell you how many years they lost in the first round, and it was just the absolute worst. I would drive to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I would fly to Auburn Hills, to Detroit, Michigan. I would go to wherever they were. Columbus, Ohio. The worst was Columbus, Ohio. I went to Columbus, Ohio, and they lost in the first round. And then we wake up on Saturday, because your game would be, it's like a Friday, Sunday deal. And so you're there, you get there on Thursday. Now you got the game on Friday. You're watching all these games. And then on Saturday, you just got to turn around and come back instead of sticking around until Sunday, until the game's on. And like you said, it's going to always be hard. And so the bigger national brands they got bailed out last year by the Lakers, making it all the way to the end.
There are Laker fans everywhere. There are Laker fans in every city.
Oh, my God. Bro, if that would have been Indiana versus New Orleans.
Well, if you get Rockets Hawks, something like that this year.
Oh,
Milwaukee
just for making this a big deal. Look, they make it all dark and they make it look like a stage and everything. But, you want there to be an environment for this.
Did it feel like an all-star game crowd, or did it feel like a sort of a fan?
It felt like
crowd?
A Lakers crowd.
Yeah, I bet it did. Yeah. The Warriors Warriors can bring those out too.
Well, look, the first game was amazing, but it felt very weird. It was in the middle of the afternoon, and there was Yeah, that was Indiana Milwaukee, which was a great game, and the Halliburton, barking at Milwaukee and all that. But it was like it was in the middle of the day, and then they kind of clear out the arena, and then you go back, and it was night and day. Truly night and day. You walk back into that arena, and it was just purple and gold everywhere. I mean, it was a Lakers home game against the Pelicans, and they beat them by 1,000.
So I didn't realize this until Sunday night. The Lakers have beaten the Rockets 15 straight times. I'm sorry, the Warriors have beaten the Rockets 15 straight times. And that's the matchup in the West. 15 straight games.
Well, and you have that whole Tari Eason, Draymond Green smoke now.
I love it.
The idea that these teams could end up meeting, like what you want is for these teams to be highly competitive and for this to start some real smoke between these teams, whether it's Thunder Mavs, whether it's Bucks Magic, like all of these teams, we don't have some kind of outlier unless you want to count the Hawks as an outlier. But we've already got but with that one's already built in because we've got
the Garden, and you had the Thunder Mavs where it was a 7-game series last year, and then the Rockets Warriors. There's sort of like this big brother little brother thing where the little brother's kind of like when there's a 2-year gap between two siblings. They get into their teens, their late teens. It's like all of a sudden those one-on-one games look a little different, and that's sort of starting to feel like it's like, we still have never beaten the big brother, but like we're getting better and better, closer and closer, and that's what it feels like. I think there's a lot of intrigue in this tournament beyond just people like us that are obsessed with the NBA, and I've noticed that amongst my friend groups who are just like sports fans, and you isolate these games on a Tuesday and Wednesday night where you're not going up against the NFL. There's only 2 games, 1 game at a time. It feels bigger. National TV, it just feels bigger and better, and I can feel it not just amongst myself and NBA nerds like us, but amongst sort of casual sports fans. It has been growing momentum, and I'm excited about the games. I am.
It is such a colossal bummer what's happened with the Magic. That's the dud.
Is oblique transplant a thing? Is it like a kidney? Can we do something?
It's so crazy because that is generally a baseball injury. And we have seen, Desmond Bain did it first. And he has not been the same since he has come back from this oblique injury.
When did he have one? Was it last year?
No, this year.
Oh, he came back.
Correct. But he had one. And then everybody was like, that's kind of a baseball injury. It's very weird. We don't really have much of a database for it, whatever else. Paulo did it the next night. He did his oblique. And then obviously this past week, we've got Franz Wagner.
My only history with obliques is
bizarre.
I've got love handles. So it's like when you're working out, you're like, I got to work those obliques. Get rid of these love handles.
You need some more core training, I think.
I know.
Possibly in the NBA. All right, question number 2. If there is a Halliburton, meaning a massive breakout that the Emirates Cup provides us, look, when I landed in Vegas last year, I was in shock disbelief as I walked around town. And there were just these huge, building sides posters of Tyrese Halliburton everywhere. And I was like, whoa, they're really making a big, he's the one they're pushing, right? He's the new thing. If there's a Halliburton, like a breakout guy, and this is the other reason that the Magic would apply to this as well. A couple of their guys would apply to this, right? This could be the big Paolo coming out party outside of, what happened in the playoffs last year in their series against Cleveland where he had some good games. But if there is a Halliburton, who are some names it could be?
So you mentioned the Magic. I'm going to take them off the board, right? Okay. I don't think Jalen Suggs is going to score 40 in the next couple of games.
By the way, did you read that article about Jonathan Isaac after the Franz injury?
No.
So Jonathan Isaac, he's like a minister, right?
Yeah, of course.
But called a team meeting, a players-only meeting, and said, look, we're going through it right now. We've lost both Paolo and we lost Franz. This team's got to rally behind Jalen Suggs.
I love it.
That's the guy. And all of us right now, this is, when it was Paolo, when Paolo went down, right? Obviously, Franz was able to carry us along. And now that we have lost. Now that we've lost Franz too, we need to all rally behind Jalen Suggs in this moment. And then they beat the Suns.
I saw it.
And Suggs had 26.
Huge game.
In the game.
But he had an all-around game. And somewhere in the back of the room, Goga Patazi was like, this is bullshit. It's like, this is my team now. I'm the captain now. To answer your question, if you look at the teams that are in this, I took this seriously. Like, who's going to be a breakout star? The Hawks are powered by Trae Young, right? So I would think Jalen Johnson would be a possibility there. But it's a Trae Young team. Giannis, it's a Giannis Dame team, and it's a Cat Brunson team. So I just took the East off the board, and then you can kind of do the same thing.
It would be a Trae reintroduction because he is fallen. He is fallen back. Right, lost the shoe deal. He's not made the All-Star team, not made All NBA. Like he's kind of, if he like threw the Hawks on his back, did it in the Garden, then they would make a big deal out of him again.
Yeah, I could see that.
A reintroduction.
You can make a case. You can make a case for that.
Well, that probably isn't the week to sing that. But
just move on.
Yeah, we'll move on.
But I think that is a possibility. And then if the Warriors, like Kuminga maybe, but I landed on Alperen Şengün.
Oh, come on. Stop.
What do you mean?
Come on.
You answer the question then. You said Trae Young. Like he's not an all-star every year.
He's not. Like he's fallen off.
Yes. Oh, please. You said Trae Young. You said a breakout star.
I did not. Okay, fine. Breakout.
A breakout star. A breakout star. Şengün.
Okay, then it would be Jalen Johnson, right? Would be the breakout.
Yes, Jalen Johnson.
He would be the guy for the Hawks.
Yes, if he caught a bunch of lobs, hit a bunch of threes, blocks, and put up some highlights. But I think Şengün has got an aesthetically pleasing game.
He is a basketball nerd guy.
That's how you break out.
The general public is never going to care about Alperen Şengün.
That's why he's the answer to this question,
No,
Verno,
if they're going to care about somebody, it would be Jalen Green. Jalen Green has the opportunity to be the one that kids want.
I've been waiting for Jalen Green to be Jalen Green for so long now. I really have. Like, he's the highlight guy.
Who are you, Raphael Stone?
Yeah, I really. It's just like some of the efficiency numbers on him. I'm like, oh man, I'm really trying to back this guy. You kind of pick guys that you love, and he was one of the guys I picked that I love because the highlights are amazing. But when you watch the games, like all of his highlights come in transition. Like he just doesn't really have a half court game. And if you look at efficiency numbers, it's like, oh, this is not great. Like he's great on Twitter. He's great in the algorithm. He's great in Instagram.
He also has the opportunity to jump over a guy.
Yes, he's a great Instagram basketball player.
Yes,
like if you don't watch games and you just like sort of follow accounts, you'd be like Jalen Green. He's an amazing Instagram basketball player. It's like Ben Simmons every summer, but it's tough sometimes. Sometimes it's a tough watch, like in a half court set when he tries to like operate. But I have Şengün because he has he's having a career year. His numbers are up in everything, and he has highlight passing ability, and he can give you 30 a game and have 10 points in the last 4 minutes of a game.
All right, how about on the other side of that game? Maybe Kuminga?
Kuminga would be the one.
He's had some huge games recently, and so if this was like the Warriors don't need to go find a third star. He was hiding in plain sight all along. That would be.
We should pull out a candidate for each team. I think it's Johnson. We can't do the Magic. Suggs for the Magic. I can see that happening.
Yeah.
Derry Bird on Milwaukee.
Stop.
I just wanted to say Derry Bird into a microphone. AJ Green, they're calling Derry Bird up there. Milwaukee's going to be. There's not one for Milwaukee. And for the Knicks, it would be OG Anunoby. For the Thunder,
you think OG?
I mean, just a breakout. Like Cat and Brunson have broken out. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna be like, "Wow, this Brunson guy's better than I thought." Like,
yeah, and everybody's well aware of Bridges, right?
I don't think there's anybody from Milwaukee.
Maybe Miles McBride. Miles McBride might be fun.
Yeah,
if he popped off.
Thunder. Who'd you pick for the Thunder?
Wait, you didn't pick. I'm surprised you didn't pick the leading 3-point shooter in the NBA for Milwaukee. What if this is the big breakout for Taurean Prince?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. When someone
You're not
said
ready
he was leading the league in 3-point percentage, I was like, really? I had to look it up. I was like, is this some sort of like attempts thing that we're moving?
He's shooting 54% from three. The guy is auto.
But on like 4 or 5 attempts a game, too. It's not just 2 attempts a game.
Yeah, Taurean Prince, automatic. Don't leave him open, right?
If I was thinking Thunder's tricky. Probably
it's Jalen.
J-Dub,
It's Jalen Williams because he is not by any means a household
name. Yeah, I think that's fair.
And if he had 30-something, right, in a couple of these games, then he would break out. Mavs don't really have anybody either.
No.
Lively. Lively but he was just in the NBA. When you're in the finals. And also if you're in the NBA finals.
Lively is his buckets come from Kyrie and Doncic, and they're a product of that. It'd be really fun to get a rematch. I just thought of this now. A rematch of the Mavs Warriors would be electric. In Vegas, after that last game we just saw between those two, in San Francisco, that would be that. I'm rooting for that now. All of a sudden, that would be so much fun. I'm excited about the Cup. I can feel the Cup has been a good experience from start to finish this year.
All right. Well, we got the game starting tonight. All right. Number 3. Right now, the team outside of the top 8 in the standings in both conferences that you believe in the most.
So this was easy for me. There's only one answer per conference for me. Okay. So I'm going to put it back on you. For me, this is like there's only one team that qualifies in each conference. Okay. For me personally. Okay. So I want to see if you agree with me. See if you can spin it for me and sell me on someone besides my 2 teams.
Well, you sent me yours, so I picked different ones.
Okay, good. Well, I for me, it's like it's Sixers and Suns, and it's not even a question. I think watching Embiid's game back was an experience. It was like he was like 0 for 7 to start the game. Right. And do you remember that game in Memphis? What'd you say was like the quietest 35 points you've ever seen? It was like he started off bad. Remember, he missed every shot short in that game. Mm-hmm. He was doing the same exact thing. And he had the brace that you've been talking about from upper thigh to lower ankle. He looked like, he had a robo leg, and it started off bad. But then what happened was they spammed this high pick and roll with Maxey dribbling to his left. And in Embiid on like a short roll, it wasn't a pop, but it wasn't a roll. He just kept getting these like 14, 15-foot jump shots over Vucevic, your guy Vucci made. And it was just like, I don't know if it was bad defense or just an unstoppable play, but bro, they did it like 15 times. And Embiid didn't hit any threes. He tried in the beginning. But this mid-range operating from the nail thing, which is one of the places that I thought he was best when Doc was actually the coach, but he used to kind of post up at the nail. But he gets the ball there facing the basket, and he can shoot over anybody. And he got to the point where Vucevic kind of got hip to it. He would just jab step and then shoot. And he was like shooting like, I don't have the numbers in front of me. He was like 7 for 10 from
How many
like
games is he going to play, though? That's the thing. How many games is he going to play? Yeah, look, he told Tim Bontemps, after that game, this is not a new injury, which
swelling.
Many people could sit back and they could say, oh, well, that's good. It's like I looked at it the complete opposite. Like, oh, this is just
you.
I can't play because of maintenance. Yeah, right?
It's like this is an injury. This is who I am now.
This is we're trying to figure out how I can play without it being debilitating every time. And I'm like, geez.
But listen, you're talking about a team outside of the top 8 in the conference. You've got Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Jared McCain.
Well, the East stinks, so you got all kinds of time.
That team to me is the only candidate in the East for me. Okay. Who you pick?
I threw Detroit on there, who just got their first win against New York since 2019. I could not believe that. I couldn't believe they have not beaten the Knicks since 2019. what they did on Saturday night, I just feel like they've been in. They're half a game out of the 8 seed right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they've been in a million of these, like early in the season, they've already played a season worth of thrillers. Seems like so many of their games. And I know those can go one of two ways, but I do think that I saw, Cade Cunningham posted this thing on Instagram after that New York game. And this is one of the things I love. I love when all the teammates then start commenting underneath it. There was even a story about this, right? And it was about, it was just like a glory to God type thing. But it was all the teammates are in the mentions, and they're all like, there's a chemistry they've developed. They play really hard every night. They've got some fun young players. And I do think Brooklyn's going to fall back. And so there's going to be some team that able to pop up. There's going to be a few. There's going to be a few that pop up. But I like the vibes. And look, they're not ready to win big or anything. But as a team that you and I both kind of thought could be in that, 8 to 10 mix and maybe get a chance at that play-in. And then who knows? You're playing 48 minutes. Maybe you could have the game of your life that one time and be able to get yourself into the playoffs, or maybe twice and get yourself into the playoffs. Feels like all those guys have got a good little bond. They got good vibes, and they all love the best player, which is Cade, who's breaking
missing
out.
Games. He's missed some games, but he's had a good season.
Yeah.
And if you were going to say, I believe in the Pistons more than the Sixers, you could make a really good case of being like, there's consistency and continuity on this Pistons roster. There's a new coach who's invigorated this team, and the Sixers are literally their three best players have played like 40 minutes together the entire season. So I think you can make a case. You can make a case for the Pistons.
So I just put them in there because you had already taken the Sixers, which is, look, the Sixers is an obvious. You're not that far out of it, though it's been a disaster thus far. And it's only, I think we both agree, it is only a matter of how many games they get out of those guys.
When they step on the floor, literally against anybody, more often than not, they're going to have three of the best players.
Correct.
Three of the best five players on the floor.
In the West?
This is easy to me, too. Suns. Kevin Durant. He's like doing some contact stuff now. He's going to be back soon. And I mean, again, it's just Kevin Durant, man. Like, you think he can't climb? You get what? Like, don't forget how good he is when he's there.
Well, here, let me explain it to you.
Oh, please do.
They're 11-2 with Kevin Durant in the lineup.
Let me think.
Look at their record. Look at their record.
Opening night, right?
No, look at their record. They're 11-2 with him. Their record right now is 12-11. So they are 1-9. They are 1-9 without Kevin Durant, and they are 11-2 with Kevin Durant.
How many times have you heard about the on-off numbers with Jokic? This is like equally sort of like demonstrative of the importance of Kevin Durant. 1-9.
They're 1-9 without Kevin Durant, and they're 11-2 with him.
I'm trying to think what the win was. I'd have to look at it. But it was probably like the Wizards or whatever, the Jazz. I bet it was the Jazz. I was going to guess it was the Jazz.
I still kind of believe in Sacramento.
Well, you saw them recently.
It gives us the opportunity to shout out our guy, Mike Brown, head coach of the Sacramento Kings, who wanted to make sure that the Sacramento Kings did the right things and did them over and over and over again correctly.
Over.
I mean, they're 12-13. They played like crap. They've had injuries. And a lot of these teams at the beginning of the season are able to win a lot of games with defense.
Mm-hmm.
But they're offensively inept. But their defense has been so great. Those teams over the course of the season will start to fall back. And the teams that are able to score every night are going to be able to make a push. In the end, it's a talent thing, like you were saying. It's a talent thing. There's nobody more consistent than Sabonis. There's Fox, and then you got DeRozan. And as time goes on, like, it's been a kind of bumpy first 25 games, but I could see them getting right.
There's something happening that no one's really talking about that our friend and colleague Kirk Goldsberry had a post about sort of 3-point shooting and that the most, the hottest, and the coldest. I was pretty surprised to see Keegan Murray as one of the coldest 3-point shooters in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the selling points about his game, is that he could knock down threes. And you could say this is a real problem for the Kings, or you could say cold start, regression to the mean. That's going to help this team get better because they have Sabonis, DeRozan, and Fox who can all get their own bucket. They don't need help getting a bucket. And if you have a knockdown shooter around someone that draws that kind of attention, it can change the geometry of the floor very quickly.
No, they need to figure out how they're going to get the role players back in the other two spots. Though you got 3 guys, you need 2 role players to go along with them. They're experimenting with the Monk thing in the starting lineup. He needs to be your bench heater. And so as time goes on, maybe they'll be able to figure it out. And then when they do, again, number one issue for bad record is lack of talent. They don't have a lack of talent. It's just been bumpy the first 25 games. And I do think that I am a believer in their talent. And so they'll be in the mix. They'll be able to, they'll hit a run at some point. Fourth question. Chris Paul, congrats to him, moved into second on the all-time assist list. Moved past Jason Kidd. When I say Chris Paul, you think of?
Point guard is the first thing I think of, right? And one of the things I found so significant about this, I loved watching him get emotional when they gave him the cool plaque with all the names of the team, whatever, the people that he's assisted to, is you celebrate being second on this list because first is just so far off. Like that's it. Like right now, like it's kind of like when James Harden was asked about being second on the 3-point shots made.
Right.
He's like, well, Steph doesn't count. So I consider myself number one because they make that plaque and they give him that ball because you are not going to get to number one. So we'll celebrate you as number 2. But point guard is the first thing I come up with and like a true definition of the position. A settler, a scorer, a fiery competitor, manipulator. And I think that it's very safe to say that he's not going to win a championship. He's not going to be a major player on a championship team. He could sign with a contender next year, but he's not going to be sort of like one of their best players. But one of the main memories I have of his career is that Warriors-Rockets series when he got hurt at the end of Game 5, a game they won. This is the KD Rockets. I mean, it's KD Warriors. This is KD, Steph, Clay, Draymond. Like, the Rockets had them up against the ropes, had a Game 7 at home and missed 27 threes. And I think in Chris Paul's career, that was the championship year. That was the one. Like that Rockets team with James Harden being the best he is in his career and the shooters they had around him. And Clint Capella was not the Clint Capella that you're watching now on the Hawks. And I really think back to that because I always want these players, these Hall of Fame players, to get a ring. And I really wanted that for Chris Paul. And I felt like that was the year. And I remember where I was. I think everyone remembers where they were during that Game 7, watching 3 after 3 after 3 after 3 be missed. And if he didn't get hurt at the very end of Game 5, they're winning Game 6 or Game 7. And they're going on to play the Cavs.
I feel like it always came down to the end where it was like, it was a groin, it was a hamstring, It was some kind of reason he could not be the fully formed version of himself. And you just wonder how many times over the course of an unbelievable career, if he just could have been himself for an entire series against people. Even, when we got to the Phoenix series against Milwaukee. That was another unbelievable. I mean, that was an NBA Finals. That was an NBA Finals, right? That was an NBA Finals.
God.
And it just feels like over and over again. I covered him when he was with those Lob City Clippers. Because they had just absolute wars against the Grizzlies in those years. I mean, and that turned into a real rivalry.
Yes.
Where everybody hated each other.
Yeah.
Yes. But hell of a competitor. There's no way around that. And congrats to him.
It's also worth mentioning the veto of the Lakers trade.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was just not really – that was like a commissioner of a fantasy league just be like, nah, You know what I mean?
His whole career is like more so than many others, I think.
Riddled with what ifs.
Sliding doors moments.
Yeah, it's just riddled with what ifs. Like you said, sliding doors moments, just one after another after another. And also remember him and David West just being unstoppable.
Yes.
Like the very beginning of his career. Yes. Like people look at David West on the Warriors or whatever, but David West and Chris Paul had a real thing going once upon a time.
Also, one of the things that comes to my mind when I think about him is I have always lauded him the year that after that whole Houston thing happened and he ends up going to they sent him out to Oklahoma City.
That's a good way of putting it. They sent him to Oklahoma
and
City.
It's we were in this realm of I don't want to be here, trade me, forced trade, whatever else, right? Instead, he took that whole just thrown together team, this ragtag group that, with Danilo Gallinari and that whole group with Oklahoma City.
They had SGA at that point.
And just drug them to being like a real seed with a chance to win in the playoffs.
Oh,
and he didn't want to be there. That was wait, what? And instead, he totally embraced it and became the guy and led them to being so much better than they had any business being.
And Phoenix wasn't exactly a juggernaut before he got there either. He wasn't ring chasing. When he went to Phoenix, he was not ring chasing. And that team was in the finals.
And in retrospect, he deserves Monty Williams Coach of the Year trophy.
That's a great point.
That should be his.
Revising history.
Yes.
Monty should just give it to him along with that plaque.
Last one. We've had some more fines that came down. We had Anthony Edwards, I think, was one of the most recent ones where he got $25,000 for using profanity. We've had some profanity fines recently in the NBA, whether it's for walk-off interviews or in press conference or locker room situations. And we've had fines for obscene gestures this year, a couple different times, whatever.
Yep, Zach Collins is going to get one. I'm sure you saw that.
Yep. The best reason to get fined is?
Well, first of all, I did a little research on this one, sort of historically great fines. And the bubble certainly brought us some good ones with our friend Lou Williams and his trip to Magic City.
Amazing.
And Daniel House and the alleged shenanigans that happened there with some guests coming into his hotel room, and those sort of things weren't allowed. But the best fine that I could find is from one of my favorite players. And if you look up his highlights on YouTube, it will blow your mind some of the athleticism that this man showcased early in his career. And that is J.R. Smith. I think a lot of people think of Knicks J.R. Smith and Cavs J.R. Smith, but Nuggets J.R. Smith was like Ja Morant or Anthony Edwards. I'm telling you. But J.R. Smith, and this is my favorite fine of all time. This is my answer to your question. Untying his opponent's shoes during the game.
No.
Yes. $50,000.
Wait, whose shoe did he untie?
I don't know exactly who that was. Like I said, I did research, but not like real research. But it was $50,000. I think it was with the Knicks, and it's just so on brand for J.R. Smith. And I think people sort of revere J.R. Smith's sort of goofiness, but I think they really forget what a great player he was. He was a goofball, but he was also a super athlete, a great shooter, and later in his career, a key role player for those Cavs teams. But man.
Wait, hold on now. I found an old article. This is from 10 years ago. And it says, NBA fines Knicks J.R. Smith $50,000 for repeated shoelace stunts.
Okay, good. Yeah.
It said the NBA did not find J.R. Smith's shoelace stunts very funny. After a warning proved insufficient, the NBA fined him.
It's even better. It's even better.
Recurring instances of unsportsmanlike conduct.
Even better.
After he twice tried to untie an opponent's shoelace during games this week. By the way, there is an entire YouTube compilation of this.
I love the idea that the league calls this man is like, stop untying people's shoes. And he's just like, hold my beer. You know, imagine being warned to not untie your opponent's shoes.
Here you go.
That doesn't stop you from untying your opponent's shoes.
I found it. Smith successfully untied the shoelace of Mavs forward Shawn Marion during a New York victory over Dallas on Saturday. The NBA then warned Smith not to do it again, but he attempted to untie the shoelace of Pistons forward Greg Monroe during New York's victory. Mike Woodson spoke directly about Smith's antics on ESPN New York 98.7 on Wednesday. I've always said I don't condone that, and I know you shouldn't do it. No, I'm not happy about this. He was warned, comes back and makes the same mistake. It's not right. I just got the information. I'm going to address it on Thursday after he comes to work. It's unacceptable. It really is. It's unprofessional. That's the only word you can use.
It's really funny. Funny is another word. Really funny is another word you can use.
Hey, Smith apologized on Twitter on Wednesday. Huge apologies to my team, to the league, and most of all you fans. It said the first untying incident occurred when Dirk Nowitzki stepped to the foul line during the second quarter. Smith, who had just checked in the game, lined up alongside Shawn Marion, occupying the third stall on the right of the paint. As Dirk went into the free throw motion, Smith bent down as if to check his shoes before reaching over to untie the shoelaces of Marion. Marion looked down, apparently catching Smith in the act, but by that point, he was jockeying for rebound position and there was nothing he could do.
I love it. I didn't know he was a habitual line stepper. I mean, this is great. But one thing I just want to say about Smith is when you're done YouTube looking at his untying shoes and then all of his great dunks from his Denver days, just maybe put in J.R. Smith dirty play. There's some results for that too. He might have had some anger management issues as well.
I think we can agree. Okay, so I'm agreeing with you. That's obviously the best reason to get fined because it is beyond hilarious. The worst is for sure flopping, which is why I'm glad they have instituted it. Flopping is the worst. Because not only have you flopped, now they're charging you $20,000 or whatever they're charging you for a flop. Horrendous.
And it's also kind of like
humiliating.
The humiliation aspect I like a lot. You know what I mean? Imagine having to write a check because you overflopped.
Yep.
I've always wanted to find out where all the fine money goes exactly.
Out of Silver's pocket.
Yeah, there should be like a Rasheed Wallace Center in Detroit or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. just like a community center that's just like got a statue of him outside. Not a statue outside of where they play, but outside of a children's center, there's a Rasheed Wallace statue of him flipping off an official.
One thing to quickly mention before we get out of here, Shams Charania put up a big notebook type insider article this morning talking about some trade stuff. He brought up, of course, names that have been out there, Jimmy Butler and Brandon Ingram, saying that Jimmy Butler, he's just something to keep an eye on, that he's got $49 million this year, a $52 million player option next year. But the idea is, hey, don't trade me. And the agent says, hey, don't trade him to here, because he's not re-signing. The expectation is he wants to get another contract to sign up for long-term going forward. But the agent evidently has said Rockets, Mavs, Warriors are teams that he would be open to.
Oh, teams he would be open to. I thought teams that were interested. I listen, I think it's clear. You mentioned Kuminga earlier that the Warriors need a second shot creator scorer.
Mm-hmm.
Bad. Mavs, I don't see it. Rockets is interesting. We've discussed at length about how they have the pieces to make a trade, consolidate pieces for a one trade. But I don't know.
The Warriors is the best. I mean, in terms of that was the one that would scare me the most if I'm the rest of the league. If they added him to Draymond and Curry,
And so what are you sending out? Like Kuminga and some
No,
picks?
I mean, it's all dependent upon how, the opinion on Kuminga and whether or not you think he's going to be a big star. Now, because, again, you're in win-now mode if you're the Warriors.
Yeah, you got Steph Curry.
This is it.
Yeah.
Right?
We always talk about how old LeBron is. Like, Steph is like 3 years younger than him.
But if you think in 3 or 4 years Kuminga's going to be a big star in the league.
Do you, though?
I don't.
I don't. Yeah,
I don't.
I don't. But it also, like, what's the motivation for the Heat? Basically saying, like, we're not going to re-sign him?
Yes.
So we'll take
We couldn't come to an agreement, so we're going to get
take 60 cents on the dollar,
right?
For our main guy who dragged us to the finals and went toe-to-toe with LeBron.
Right.
I don't know.
Same way with Ingram. Again, you got to try to find him a landing spot. I know that Minnesota's name came up in the summer, he mentions, and so who knows with that. Obviously, things have not gone very well for them.
Well, I think Ingram is
I'm not in love with
me.
that just because I think they need to create more space, and that doesn't really create more space. But
Ingram is interesting to me because I could see the Pelicans are not contending. Like the Heat are a team, if they're getting the plane and they're the 8th seed, they feel like they can beat the 1 seed. They feel like they can make a run. They've done it before. They have a history of competing and contending, whereas the Pelicans are very clearly not competing and contending this year. So they would be willing to take a package with salary dump plus picks plus young prospects to rebuild. So I think that Ingram is much more likely to end up on another team.
Yeah, they can't afford Ingram, so he's going to end up elsewhere.
Yeah. And he looked great. He was my player that I loved last pod.
Yeah, and so Warriors also are mentioned as, they've got D'Anthony Melton, who unfortunately tore his ACL. They've got his contract. They got some draft capital that they may that they may be moving that around. They've showed some interest in Brooklyn's guys, Cam Johnson, Finney Smith, Dennis Schroeder, those kind of guys, right? Those are all veteran guys as well, right, that you could add to the mix to try to bolster what you've got going, and maybe, you move off of some of your younger guys for win now guys.
There's I think Golden State. There's certain players that you just like more than everybody else. Cam Johnson's always been one of those guys for me.
Interesting.
I've always liked him. I've always just been like, I don't see what's wrong with this guy. He's tall, he can shoot, he can defend, he can pass, dribble, and shoot. Like, what's the problem here?
Shams also mentions contenders expected to pursue Kyle Kuzma. That name obviously came up. And then the 3 Portland guys, Robert Williams, Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant. So are some other names. So the reason this is relevant now is because starting on, I believe it's Sunday.
The 19th,
The 15th.
Okay.
The 15th is when players that signed contracts.
Oh, no, I was like, he mentioned the 19th is the G League showcase in Orlando.
Right. But the 15th is when some of these guys can move.
Can be moved. But I like this. I always like the idea that like everyone gets together to watch the G League showcase, but really we all get together to talk trades before the deadline.
And they all start talking, and then things start to move a little bit. All right, that's going to do it for today. We will reconvene later in the week. I will thank you to our executive producer, Jesse Lopez, as always, and I'll talk to you later this week. Jacoby?